Grace, I want to take the opportunity to welcome you. It's a delight to meet you and to be able to spend this time together. I'm going to begin our hour or so together by asking you what I ask everybody as a first question. To give me your name, your full name as it is.
Grace Ausili.
And do you have a middle name, Grace?
My name is Grace Marie, but I never use Marie.
Okay, you never used. All right. What was your maiden name?
Chiriani. Very Italian.
Chiriani was Italian, and
That's
what about you?
Ausili is also Italian.
Is Italian.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Where did Grace come from? Who chose the name Grace for you?
My grandmother was Maria Grace, and my mom named me Grace Marie.
And this is your...
And couldn't be a nicer lady to be named after.
This was your grandma?
My grandmother on my mother's side.
On your mother's side?
Right, right.
Did you know her?
Oh, knew her, loved her. She had a great influence in who I am and what I'm all about. And she was someone everyone should meet. She had several grandchildren, but you wouldn't have known that. You would have thought you were the only one.
Is that right?
So she was a very special lady.
Where did you grow up?
I was born in Brooklyn. I lived with my grandmother and grandfather, an uncle and aunt, and my mom and dad, a sister and brother. We had a lovely home. And
now, was this, as we were discussing earlier, in the Coney Island area?
This was on 42nd Street in Brooklyn. I believe they call that Borough Park.
Okay.
And we were there a few years. I was born in my uncle's bed. He came home from work and found a package. But at any rate, we then moved to an apartment in Brooklyn. We were there a couple of years, and my dad decided he had enough of married life. And it was just my mom and the three of us.
All right. You were born in 1937?
I was born in 1937, December 16th. Okay. And that's why I was born at home. Mom wanted to be home for Christmas.
No kidding.
So she said, we're not going to a hospital. So December 16th, I arrived.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, having that kind of closeness with family must have been a very important influence in your life too, to grow up with grandparents and having the benefit of more than just your mom. You say your dad decided early on that he was having difficulty with family life, or he was having difficulty being
Actually, may I be blunt?
Absolutely. This is your story.
You know, I can love him or dislike him. It makes no difference.
Exactly.
I didn't know him. I was 6 years of age.
Yes.
But as the story goes and you get older, you realize things. He liked money, couldn't make money, found a woman with money, and married money.
There you go.
And that's the story of that. I would have to say in these years of so much divorce and what have you, I had a wonderful growing up time. There was no fighting in my house. It was better to have my mom, sister, brother, and I without him than to have them struggle and fight together. And my mom deserves great credit.
She was both mother and father.
She was mother and father, and she was an at-home mother and father. I will give him one thing. He supported us until we reached 18.
Yes.
And for that, I'm grateful.
Yes. Is he alive today?
No, he passed away. He moved to Arizona. He was quite ill with arthritis and different things. But
over the years, you had little contact.
None.
None. What about your mom? Is she living?
Mom died same year my husband died. They died 3 months apart.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ooh, that was a heavy year for you.
Oh, it was. It was.
My goodness, a lot of changes in your life that year.
That's
correct.
And
we're going to get into some of the other ones as we talk during a lot of part of the interview, because you made a lot of decisions that year.
That's correct.
Yeah. Did you have a nickname?
Not really, no. Oh. And I appreciate people who call me Grace, because I dislike Gracie immensely. Immensely. Will not answer you if you call me Gracie, or I might say thanks, George. But really, I just like to be called Grace.
So now you mentioned that you lost not alone your mother, you lost your husband.
That's correct.
3 years ago, and you are therefore now a
A
A
married
single
widow.
person? You are a married widow, are you? We're talking before about your children. How about introducing us to your children by name and tell us something about each one of them, where they are, what they're doing with their lives?
I'd love to. I'm very proud of 3 sons. The oldest is Frederick. He was born in 1958. He is with United Parcels. He's also a law student, has a wonderful wife, Karen, with 3 beautiful children, lived 10 minutes away in East Islip. By the way, I'm from Brentwood. Still am,
Still.
always was, and always will love it. So Fred lives in East Islip. Then there's Peter. Peter is a lawyer. I'll backtrack.
Yeah.
Fred is with United Parcels now, but he's in law school. He'll graduate in December. Peter is a lawyer with the judge here in Central Islip, the new courthouse. He's a clerk for Judge Wexler. And he has a lovely wife, Catherine, who just graduated court reporting school. They have Melissa, 19, and Patrice, 4.
Wow.
Melissa is the godmother for the baby.
Ah.
And everyone says, 2 different parents? No, we're the same.
Ah.
There's a fun story with that. Would you like to hear it?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Catherine married Peter. She got pregnant while in school for architecture. Left school, waited 15 years before she went back to school, 13 years before she went back to school. Said, I'll never be pregnant again, so I might as well go to school. Pursued court stenography, became pregnant, delayed graduation a year and a half. But God bless her, she graduated, and we have a wonderful Patrice. So we have Peter's family. And then we move on to Jim, who just got married 2 years in August to another lawyer. So we are blessed with Joanne, who is just a lovely gal. You know, I had 3 sons, but I have 3 daughters.
What a wonderful thing to say.
And I have 5 grandchildren. May they all be well.
And 3 sons who've chosen well.
Yes, you know, their dad was a mechanic, a basic mechanic who loved working with his hands. Worked for Pan Am, became a supervisor. Pan Am went out of business,
Yes.
but he was let go before Pan Am went out of business. That's a long story too, but we'll pass that.
Okay.
There was life after Pan Am.
Yes. Yes.
And he took a heart attack when he was 39 years of age. And, well, we'll move that later.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay.
But the 3 children are married, so I can feel good about that because they have nice families.
And they're all on Long Island.
Jim is in Larchmont. The
Okay.
youngest one is in Larchmont. Peter is in Ridge. And Fred, as I said, is in East Islip.
So they're all, then we
So-
can say, in the metropolitan area.
Absolutely.
And you
Absolutely.
have opportunities for family visits.
That's
and for,
correct. And
see the
extended
grandchildren.
families,
And extended.
because their families are lovely people. So I get to see not only my sons and their families,
Yes.
their girls, but extended
Grace, do you
families.
see in your grandchildren some of the qualities that you saw in your children, or perhaps that you've seen, if you look in the other direction
Mhm.
of the family, that you see reappearing in the youngsters? Have you noticed anything that is
I
a family
think-
trait or a family interest or
I think what I see, number one, is humor. Humor has been a great part of my grandmother's family, my family. My husband loved to laugh, God bless him. The children find humor in situations.
What a gift that is.
And I think that the children are healthy enough and do find humor in a lot of situations, you know. And I like that. I like that.
That is
you
a
know.
gift. It is.
So I think that might be a thread that's been going through the family now.
Okay. Let me move along because we're doing so well here. Let's go back to, I asked, where you were born, and you answered and told me when you were born. What's some of your earliest childhood memories?
Let's see. I loved when I lived at my grandmother's house. My uncle had the produce wholesale retail at the Hunts Point Market.
Yes, in the Bronx.
So when he would come home, he would bring a bag of vegetables. And always, most every day, he had a bag of vegetables. And then he would come in, and my grandmother always set up a big meal for him because that was his main meal of the day. And I would always look out the window and say, Uncle Charlie's coming, Uncle Charlie's coming. And she'd say, good, good. And one day, he didn't have his bag. And I said to her, Grandma, Uncle Charlie is coming, but he has no vegetables. Don't cook for him today. And I still remember that.
What about, I wanted to ask you a little bit about your mother's family's background.
Okay. Very interesting. Grandfather and grandmother, whom I lived with. My grandfather and grandmother came from Italy. They were an arranged marriage. He was about 9 years older than she was. She was in a convent, very wealthy people in Italy. My grandfather's people were architects, worked for the Pope. They were in Italy. They were very highly educated. He was a playboy. To hear my uncle, he was sent out of Italy. That's why he came here. But at any rate, they were married. They came here and they started their family. He had an Italian sausage store, cheese store, and they were doing quite well. They had a beautiful home in Brooklyn.
Now, this is not something that he must have, did he learn that here or he adapted?
No, it was things they had they had businesses in
I
Italy.
see.
And, and
what part of Italy? Is this in the area of
my
Rome,
grandmother was from Naples.
Okay.
And I don't know exactly where Grandpa was from, but she was from Naples. And so they had the business here. They had 4 girls and 4 boys, I believe, 2 of whom passed away. I might be a little inaccurate with that, but I know there were 8. And they lost the store with the Depression.
Oh.
They also lost the home with the Depression, which had a great influence on how my aunt and uncle carried themselves for the rest of their days, So that was quite an experience.
The interesting thing about what you just said is that the Depression influenced more than the people who were working. It also influenced the children who were observers.
Absolutely.
So it has influenced you as well.
Right.
In your attitudes toward things or in your awareness of things.
No question. No question. I mentioned the children. There was an aunt. Her name was Julia. We called her Auntie. Next to my grandmother, and of course my mother is always there.
Yes.
This aunt was someone to model after. She had guts and she was funny and she was a woman before her time.
She was a strong woman.
She was funny. She was good. My grandfather was not fair when he raised the children. I'll be polite and say that.
Yes.
And she used to work in the store. And she used to get up at 5 and go open the store for him. And he used to say, I'll give you a quarter at the end of the week. But the end of the week never came. And she said to him, Daddy, where's my money? I've been doing everything. Oh, tomorrow. Well, one day she took off, didn't open the store, and just went about her business. And when she got home, of course, he was waiting. What happened was, she said, she said, you owe me my money. When you pay me my money, I'll continue my chores. And I thought, that took a lot of courage.
That's gutsy.
That was gutsy.
Yeah.
And although I might not be as gutsy as she is, I did admire her for it,
What did your mother love to do? I mean, where were her passions?
Cards.
Really?
She loved to play cards.
Did she have a favorite game?
She played Mahjong. Okay. That's what they played. I think in the 50s and 60s, they played Mahjong. And Oh, it was fun watching them, and of course I learned the game because of it. But Mom stayed at home. She took care of us. She cooked for us and took care of our needs and all. But she made a life. She made a life.
Am I accurate, or would I be fair to say that because your father left when you were at age 6,
Right.
you had minimal or no contact with your paternal grandparents?
That's correct.
Okay.
I really knew nothing of them.
Okay.
There was he had a sister
Mm-hmm.
who was very, very poor and married to an alcoholic. And she had 4 children.
Doesn't sound
And-
like a happy story.
No, and my mom, what was good is that my mom taught us another lesson. Mom never talked about my father in a negative way. Never. Didn't admire him, but would never let us feel
Yes.
that there was animosity or anything. She took care of this aunt, fed the kids. Now, we didn't have much ourselves. I mean, but she taught me a lesson about life. There's need, be there.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
When it went to court for my father to give the money or
Yes.
whatever he was doing, this woman turned on my mother and she defended my father.
Yeah.
And my mother, that was a very difficult time, but I remember that.
Yeah.
And there too, my mother never said a terrible word about this person. Never.
Right.
So she
Right.
was a person to admire greatly, So I've had good models. And it's,
Condemn the sin, but not the sinner, right?
absolutely. I
Yes.
mean, we all have our skeletons in the closet,
Sure.
and who knows why. Maybe they gave her some money and she
Yes.
needed it. So who
Yes.
knows? We
Yes.
won't judge.
I didn't ask you, or maybe you did answer it already, and it's out of my mind. You were not an only child.
Oh no, I had Jackie and Tom and myself. Jacqueline is 7 years older than I am. Tom is 2.5 years older than I am, and I'm the baby.
You're okay. That's it.
I'm
You're
the baby.
You are the baby in the family.
Yeah.
Are you?
We're close.
Is everybody
My
still with you?
brother is not close because he lives upstate,
Uh-huh.
and it's difficult. But I'll be
Okay.
seeing him at the end of this month. And my sister and I get together quite frequently.
Are there children? Do they have children of their own families? too?
Jacqueline
So-
has a son, a beautiful daughter-in-law, and 3 children with 3 grandchildren. Tom has 3 children, 2 boys, 1 girl. The girl has Williams syndrome, but God bless her, she graduated high school this month.
This month.
And the boys, one is married and has 2 little girls, and his wife Diane is splendid. You'll have to know something right off the bat. There are very few people in this world I don't like. So if you hear me say he's nice and she's nice, I genuinely mean that. People like me and they don't like me, and that's okay. And that's how I am in life.
I tend to think there's not enough time for any other.
There you go. And that's about it,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I haven't met a person I've really,
Yes.
you
Yes.
they're all God's people.
Given what you just described about your feelings about people in general and family in particular, do you think that there's a difference in the closeness of family today from that which existed, let's say 30 years ago or 20 years ago? When I'm talking about the opportunity for getting together, for extended visits, for closeness, is it more difficult today because we've spread out more and because our whole culture has changed, or is it something that you see still present, alive and well in your own family experience?
I think it's cyclical,
Okay.
and I think it's up to the families. People travel a lot. The plane, the train have all separated a lot of people.
A lot more choices.
A lot more choices. Money has separated people. Children can't live on Long Island, so they move. Very heartbreaking for their parents, okay. However, those that are near each other, I have a very close family. I see the children. I don't tell my daughters-in-law how to live. I don't want them to tell me how to live. Years ago, that was the difference. Your parents thought they had to run your life. Your grandparents had to run their life. And I don't want that to happen. You know, I want the children to enjoy their freedom to learn. And I want to be a model, not a tutor. Okay. And so closeness is what you do with it. You know, you can live next door and be very far apart, or you can live far apart and be very close.
You're talking about modeling. You learned a lot through your experience as a member of your particular family. What you described sounds almost idyllic. It sounds like it was a wonderful childhood.
It had its sadness.
I was going to say, everything
without my dad,
yeah.
When I was in school, I remember denying that he wasn't there.
Okay.
I remember the hurt at other people having the mom and dad together with the friends. But you know what I did? I used that. Mm-hmm. I used watching their marriages and said, you know what? I had an aunt who divorced. I had another aunt who divorced. I had a mother who divorced. I said, that's not going to happen to mine. Not if I can help it. Mm-hmm. Life, you know, sends you curves and you don't know. But I watched good marriages and I watched poor marriages and tried to garner the best for what I could do, you know. And we had our ups and downs, but we had a hell of a lot of fun along the way.
You mentioned the adult influences besides your mother. You mentioned your maternal grandmother and your aunt, who were very strong role models. Were there other either friends of the family or neighbors or adults that you can say have really influenced some of your feelings or attitudes?
Those whose marriages first of all, I lived in Brooklyn in an apartment. Everybody should live in Brooklyn in an apartment. It's a melting pot. You're with Italians, Jewish, black, white. It's wonderful. You learn people, you know. I was uncontrollable. Mom would say, you know, you really should be careful when you talk to those people. And I couldn't listen to that because they were just people. You know, I talked to everybody. I once was in jail. Mom said we were out shopping and I saw a Chinese couple and they were so interesting. They were talking a mile a minute. I had no idea what they were talking about, but I followed them. And of course I got lost and Mom had to pick me up at the precinct. But at any rate, that's the kind of thing. And you're in an apartment and you hear people's stories in their lives. And there was one particular young fella who lived downstairs. We were in the courtyard. Yeah. Tony. Yeah. And his mom loved to play gin rummy. So did I. And his mom and dad were what I would call a wonderful couple. And I love them dearly. And they influenced a lot of how I wanted my marriage to be.
Yes.
So yes, there were. And it was not all glory. I was sad to be poor.
Yeah.
I was sad not to have a father.
But you were also very curious too,
absolutely. Weren't you? And to this day, I'm very, very
inquisitive.
I will never be accused of being nosy because I won't ask you your business. Okay. But I'm an observer. I'm a people observer.
Okay.
And I take what's good, what I think is good.
What did you love to do yourself as a little girl?
Everything. That's why I didn't grow up until I was 37. You see, I liked to bowl. If I bowled, I liked to be the best. If I played ball, I wanted to hit the home runs. In school, I wanted to be very, very good in school. I didn't know what I wanted. I wanted everything.
Wanted it all.
I wanted it all. And I wanted to be good at it all.
How did you then finally narrow down a decision as to what you might want to do with your life to become a teacher or to end up in education? Yeah. And who primarily influenced that choice?
Okay. When I graduated from elementary school, St. Rose of Lima in Brooklyn, you had to fill out this little album. And it said, what would you like to be? And I put down a math teacher because I have a phenomenal mind with numbers. Numbers. Don't move me to algebra. Don't move me to calculus. But give me numbers. So I wanted to be a math teacher. Okay. The years passed by. I went to high school. I married, had a family. My career came to me. I didn't go to my career. Okay. Going I was reading a paper in the church bulletin, and it asked for help in special education. And I thought, well, Jim is going to go to kindergarten. He'll go on the bus. I'll have 2 hours a day. Why don't I? And so I went to it used to be the library and the administration building in 1972 in Brentwood. And I knocked on the paper said, see Mr. Brodsky. So he was the director of special education. Loved him. So I knocked on his door, said, hello, my name is Grace. Where can you put me? You got me 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. And he looked at me and he said, you for real? I said, honest, you could have me 2 days, 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. And he took me over to South Elementary, called the principal, Pete Demento, over there, and he said, this lady will give you 2 hours a day in a special ed class. I'm going to put her with. And he put me with a lady called Lynn Evans. Lynn Evans was the lead singer for the Chordettes. She sang Mr. Sandman. Great gal. Also went into teaching very late, much later in life. So I worked for Lynn Evans, and I worked for an ex-nun, Ann Cullen. So I went for 2 hours a day for 2 years until I got a phone call. Grace, how would you like to be paid? Paid for what? I'm loving what I'm doing. He said, for an assistant's job in special ed. Oh, I said, that's great, Mr. Brodsky. Went home, talked to Al. He said, sounds good to him. 4 hours a day, doesn't interfere. You know, we were home parents, so Al was happy. He didn't care if we had that much money, but let's stay with the kids, okay? Yes. He'd work 2 or 3 jobs, but let's stay with the kids. So the hours were great, 10 to 2, and in the classroom. So it was really good. And I worked for a woman called Janet Carroll, who was and is a splendid gal. Loved teaching, taught for about 36 years before she retired. And hard worker, not allowed to talk during work. One day I was working with a child and she looked up at me and she said, Grace. I said, yes. Very surprised. She said, what's a smart girl like you doing in a place like this? Go to school. We didn't continue to talk. We just went about our business. But she planted a seed. Went home and talked to Al. And I registered for 1 course. Would you like to know how I did that?
How'd you do that?
How did I do that? Good question. Went up to Suffolk Community College. May I backtrack?
Sure.
In between, Al had a massive heart attack. And fortunately, I was home. And he said to me, I have a pain over here. He said, but I feel good when I lay down. I said to him, are you insane? You're having a heart attack. I don't know where that came from. I called up the doctor and said, Al's having a heart attack. I'll be there in 2 minutes. He said, Grace, how do you know that? I hung up on him. I don't know how I knew it. I just did it. I said, get in the car. I dragged him to the car. I drove 70 miles down Broadway, 70 miles an hour down Broadway, went through a 7-Eleven, up the grass of the doctor's office, past red light, kept shaking him, don't go to sleep, don't go to sleep. Brought him into the doctor's office, and the doctor administered to him. He had a massive heart attack. And, you know, I talk about things because they fall into place. We have to believe that when things happen, they happen for a reason. Our dear friend was John Crane. He was a priest in St. Anne's. He was on vacation that week. I tried to get a hold of him to come to the hospital with me. Hello, is John there? No, he's not. We haven't heard from him. In 3 days, he's on vacation. Please, if you hear from him, who walked in the office just then? John Crane. I'm on the phone. He rushed to the hospital. Why was he there? Who knows? Why did Al have a heart attack? You know what? I got a full college education. He recovered. He did recover, thank God. We had 25 more years after that.
You mentioned knocking on the door.
Knocking on the door, at the college door, and I said, hello, my name is Grace. I said, I don't have any money, but I have a very good brain. Can you help me? And they said, come right in. And they set me up at Suffolk Community. I took one class because I had never been in a college. I was petrified. But, I have a lot of fear, as anyone else. But you know what? Walk through it. Don't let the fear take you over. So at any rate, I went and took the one course. I got an A. Nothing better than getting an A. And you know what? My high school graduation, my high school, all came back to me in college. Was good. Then I took 5 classes and proceeded to graduate in 16 months instead of 2 years.
And then you went back and knocked on the president's door, didn't you?
I needed a scholarship. I couldn't afford to go to school. How do you go to school and pay those and raise 3 children and have a husband on disability? So I went to there was a president's scholarship at St. Joseph's, and I knew I wanted to go to St. Joseph's. So I knocked at the door and I said, hello, my name is Grace, and I'd like to talk about the president's scholarship. What is your average? 3.9. Oh, no, sorry, we need a 4. Whoa, I said, hold on. You have to hear my story. So she said, all right, what's your story? And I proceeded to say how I was taking 5 classes. My husband was ill. I had 3 children to raise. We were doing this on disability income. I said, look, I said, I have a 3.9, but I got 5 classes, blah, blah, blah. I said, many people get the scholarship because they take 1 or 2 courses and they get straight A's. And I'm not knocking them. That's what they're able to do. I said, but I think I deserve it. And I did get it. And I got the President's Scholarship. And I graduated in 2 years from St. Joseph's. And I graduated on a Friday. And when I said things meant to be, a teacher was in a car accident and they needed someone to fill in. And I went to see my boss just that day and said to him, a couple of days before, and said, I'm graduating. Any jobs?
Wow.
And so I got a phone call.
Wow.
So he said to me, get in here. He went upstairs and talked to the G-Guy DiPietro,
Yes.
who was the superintendent at that
Yes.
time. And he said, wait here and I'll find out if you have a job. And he came down and he said, you start Monday.
Okay.
So Brentwood is good to its people.
Yes.
I love the Brentwood School District. I love it. It's got heart. It's got spirit. I had a wonderful career. Wonderful.
Tell us a little bit about the congruence of events. Well, you know something, Grace, maybe I'm pushing you. I think we'll wait on that because
All right.
I know I wanted to ask you that, but let's wait till later in the interview. Right now, I'll take you the other direction, back to your own high school days. Do you have any contact with any of the friends that you made in high school?
Absolutely.
You do.
I have grammar school contact.
You do.
We went back to St. Rose. We had a great, great big party as St. Rose was celebrating its 125th anniversary. But besides that, I still see people I went to school with when I was 6 years old.
So you
until I
have a
was
number
14.
of long-term friendships.
Oh, I have a great saying that I love.
Resource
Make
to
new
have?
friends, but keep the old
Isn't
ones.
it great to be able to talk to somebody who's known you for
Absolutely.
your whole life?
And you know what's great? You don't see each other for a year, and you call up and you say, hi, how you doing? And it's as
And it's
if you
right
saw
there.
each other yesterday.
Yeah.
And you know what? There's room in our hearts and there's room in our lives for everybody.
Yes.
Everybody fits. So that I love to talk to the people
Yeah.
from then,
Yes,
you
sure.
know.
They can
And
remember things about you that you probably
that
have
I
forgotten.
forgot. Absolutely. Some I like to hear, some I'm not so keen on here. But,
Do you have chores that you were responsible for
I
growing
was
up?
terrible. I
Or
was
you were
terrible.
wild, huh?
Well, you know, I had a sister who was really, my sister Jack is responsible for a lot of who I am also because she helped Mom. She didn't graduate from high school because she went to work and she helped my mother to pay the bills and all. And they made sure that I got my I had a free college in free high school in St. Brendan's. It was the last class of free, no tuition. But I did get the score to get into St. Brendan's, and Jackie wanted to make sure that I got that education.
And that was in the Coney Island area.
And that was the Coney Island Avenue and Avenue O.
Avenue O. Okay.
St. Brendan's, non-existent any longer. But she helped me, and she helped my mom a lot, and I was a brat. The dishes needed to be done, I would disappear, you know.
Okay.
But you know what? I will be very frank with you. I didn't like where I was living. It was my mom and three of us in a three-room apartment. And I was not a happy camper with that.
Okay.
And I think the more I could be out of the apartment, the better I liked it.
Well, there you go.
You know? And you know, that was a part of it that wasn't so good.
That gave you also the experience to understand kids who you later would teach and work with too, because of your own feelings and compassion growing up and knowing what it felt like to be in certain situations.
This is true.
Yeah.
This is true.
Do you remember your first paying job? Your very first job?
Besides babysitting, Woolworths.
Woolworths.
Everybody went to Woolworths. I was at the candy counter.
Oh.
Fortunately, I'm not a great candy eater, so
yes.
I didn't grow until later.
Yes.
But that was.
Was
my
there a
first job.
family holiday that was of particular importance to your immediate family?
Well, every Sunday was Grandma Day.
Oh.
You know, Italian families who all got together on Sunday. The extended family.
That was
I remember good times.
Serious eating going on.
Serious eating. And eventually it was serious fighting, you know. Who wanted this and who did that? And, you know, too many people all the time, you know. But
how many cousins do you have?
Oh, I never stopped to count. But
what?
The extended close by.
Yeah.
We were at least 12, 13 children when we got together, you know.
Okay.
My husband had 9 sisters.
Oh, my.
You know.
Was he the only boy?
That's it.
Wow.
Yeah.
He really learned women. Learned about women.
The most unselfish person. I was spoiled by him. He was not spoiled. But at any rate, that was another story, the Ausilis. But my first job was Woolworths, and it was great. It was okay. It, you know, it was, I love numbers, so the cash register was a blast.
But you also like people, and you were taking care of people.
People was the thing, right.
Grace, are you a morning person or a night person?
I have great energy. So I could get up and wash a floor as opposed to first having a cup of coffee. And I've been blessed with great energy. I can stop and be quiet. But I also can go throughout the day at a great pace and enjoy it. I was always a day person, into bed at night around 10, 10:30. In retirement, we won't talk about what time I go to sleep.
Okay, in other words, it changed.
It changed.
All bets are off because it
You
does
got
change.
it.
Yes.
In retirement,
You
do what you want.
Grace, you recreate your life. You recreate yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you know what you do? I think you go back to being 18. In my case, especially as I'm a widow, I am accountable to no one. You know, I've never had such freedom since I was 18 years of age before I got married. Yes, I have responsibility, and I do not shrug that off. Yes. But I'm free. You know, and it's
a blank canvas, and you can paint whatever you wish.
So if I want to watch a movie that I see is going on at 2 in the morning, I watch a movie at 2 in the morning.
Speaking of that, are you a movie person, or do you like to read? Or are you a painter or a musician? What
my own likes?
Yes,
I love Reader's Theater.
Okay,
I love theater. I have extended that into my family. You asked a long time ago what it was that passed through this house.
Yes.
My son does theater work, one of the lawyers. He sings, he dances, he's got a great mind, so he remembers all the lines. I, on the other hand, love theater, but I like to read the script. I don't have the memory for, I get too nervous.
Right, okay? For memorizing
lines. Memorizing the lines, I'm too nervous in front of the camera.
Right.
For ad-libbing, for reading, I love Reader's Theater. I did it in college. and it was a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
There was a time in Brentwood when Reader's Theater was a part of the kids' experience.
It
too.
was, yes,
Did you ever
and
do
it
that
was
with
Suffolk
kids?
Community is where I did it,
Oh,
in
I
Suffolk
see.
Community
Okay.
College.
Here's a totally different kind of question. Are there certain aromas that trigger memories for you that you're aware of? I mean, if you walking outside, or you're walking through a part of a house, and you'll pick up an aroma that will bring you right back to another time and place in your life. Have you ever noticed that?
I think when I smell bacon, I go to Connecticut.
Okay.
We had summers, although we were not wealthy, my mom was
Right.
just able to take care of us. My aunts and uncles were all well-to-do, very well-to-do. One of my aunts, Julia, rented a home in Connecticut on the water every year in Old Lyme.
Where
Old
in
Lyme,
Old Lyme?
Connecticut.
Oh, my goodness.
And we all went. So we could be 40, 50 people in this house. There were 9 rooms, 9 bedrooms. And when I smell bacon, I think of the breakfasts, making
Yes.
tons of
Yes.
bacon and eggs.
That was in the
and so
days.
it takes me back to Connecticut.
That was in the days when you could eat those kinds of breakfasts.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know,
Do you have a favorite season, Grace?
favorite season. I've just come to know that. See, I'm a very late bloomer.
Mm-hmm.
I've just come to know that I prefer winter to spring or fall. You know, the trees are barren and everything is open. In the spring and in the fall, everything is closed in by the trees, and they're full and very beautiful, but they're full and they hide things. I like openness.
Yes.
I think I like openness in my life and who I am, and I like openness in my world.
There's an honesty about the winter, isn't there?
Oh, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. A little stark.
I write poetry
honest, do you?
sometimes, and I
Wonderful.
wrote a poem about spring. And you know, it has to do with welcoming spring, but with winter's dormant hours. You know, so it's
Wonderful.
yeah.
Wonderful.
I like winter.
Did you know that you could like poetry, or that you could write poetry while you were working? Was there time for that in your life?
You know, we're insecure when we're young, and unless you have people to model, it's difficult to know where you're going or what you're doing. I wrote from the time I was 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, poetry, stories, and I tore them up.
You did.
I tore them up. I didn't know that anyone else would ever want them,
Or that you would
or
want
that
them.
I would want them.
Mm.
And I think
There's a
if I
lesson to
didn't get
others.
married, I would have gone in theater. I would have definitely gone the theater route.
Grace, never too late, is it?
No, I'm pursuing Reader's Theater.
Yes, good.
I have feelers out. But
Yes.
my granddaughter, who's 19, does lighting for the theaters. She
okay.
does it out in Coram.
Well, there
She's
certainly
done-
is a thread in the
Oh,
family,
I took her
isn't
to her
there?
first play.
Yes.
I took her to her first cruise. I took her on her first. We went to see the opening of Victor Victoria together.
Oh, good.
We had
good.
opening night.
What a great experience.
So, you know, theater has been a part
Yes,
of. My son loves
yes,
it, my granddaughter.
yes.
So that's a thread.
Yes. Did you have a favorite subject when you were in high school?
Numbers, arithmetic. Always.
That you've talked
math.
about. That was the
Always.
passion. Yeah.
Always, always.
Okay. When did you first come to Brentwood? I mean, you mentioned you live in Brentwood now. You've been
Right.
here a long time.
Right.
You've never moved away.
Nope, 36 years.
When did you first enter this community? or come to this
36 years
community?
ago. Came to Brentwood. Al always said, I can't get my wife to move from Brooklyn to Queens. Look where we're going. We're going out to Long Island. $10 down, I had a house.
So this
You
is in the early 60s.
This is 65.
60, middle 60s.
65.
Okay.
Went
Right
home to
in the
Grandma and said,
middle-
Grandma, I just bought a house for $10. She went hysterical. Get me one of those. So
That was in the middle of
we
the boom.
broke up the family.
Oh, you did. You were
Well,
the first to move
Actually, we
away
moved out
to the
Long
suburbs.
Island. Yeah. Then my sisters-in-law started to come out. My mother-in-law would say, who's going to go over the water's edge first, because we moved further and further.
But that was
Great time.
That was a phenomenon in the country at that time.
Absolutely.
Anyway.
Absolutely.
Everybody was moving to the suburbs.
Absolutely.
And it seemed that everybody in I don't know about Brentwood, but everybody on Long Island seemed to have come from Brooklyn originally.
Isn't that the truth? Yep. Yeah. Now all the Brentwood people are in Florida. So now you go to Florida to see your friends. You went from Brooklyn to Brentwood, now you go from Brentwood to Florida.
Now, there was a lot of building going on all over the island. Why Brentwood? What brought you here? Why did you look here?
$10 down.
That was it?
I have to be honest with you. A friend bought a house around the corner from us, told my sister-in-law about it. She called me and said, you know, Grace, Elaine moved to Brentwood. Why don't you look there? She paid $10 down and, you know. Mm-hmm. So we did. We came out and we found this home. And
where was it in Brentwood?
It's in a cul-de-sac.
Are you still living in the same house?
Same house.
Okay, where was it? North Brentwood, South Brentwood?
That would be considered my north, south, east, and west.
Okay.
But it's in Loretta Park School District.
Okay, all right.
And it is it's off Spur Drive North.
Okay.
And it's a lovely area. It's still a lovely area. And the people are
Is your mailing address Brentwood or is it North
Brentwood?
Bayshore? It is.
Oh, no, it's Brentwood. Okay. And in fact, when I student taught, I walked to Loretta Park.
There you go. Talk about that part of it now. You mentioned earlier how you walked into, at a certain point, you walked into Howard Brodsky and offered yourself as a volunteer, right, which later became a paying job,
right,
which later became a teaching job because a job opened up and Guy.
Well, in between, I became a clerical because Al had his massive heart attack. And the day he was in intensive care, I was scheduled to take a civil service test. And I had to take it because I needed benefits. Al's heart attack occurred a day before his insurance ran out.
My goodness.
So God is good. We had insurance, but for me to then continue with insurance, I had to have a clerical's job. And I passed the test, and Brentwood, thank God, Brentwood, I got a clerical's job. And this wonderful district gave me a year off to go to college. And so therefore I was able to keep my insurance. You know, I paid for it, but I was able to keep it going. You were working for the district. I worked for the district. They gave me a leave of absence to continue college.
Right.
And that's how I was able to graduate.
Oh,
and
wonderful.
How could I not love Brentwood?
Yes.
It put 3 children through school. They became lawyers. We've had a wonderful life in Brentwood.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes.
St. Anne's Parish is a wonderful parish.
And an important part of your life as well.
Do you know what those people did? When Al had his heart attack, people I didn't know well, I would come home and find money in my mailbox. Anonymous, just money in my mailbox, help you with the family. You know, because he was a great community person. He helped build Pronto. I don't know if you're familiar with the Pronto.
Yes.
It was the house they needed to store the clothing.
Yes.
And he helped build that. And people didn't forget. People were wonderful. Can I pay your phone bill? Can I? You know, you don't do things in life alone. Whether you want to think you do, but you do it within a community.
Well
and there's
said.
everybody there to help. You know? So the Brentwood School helped. The community helped. St. Anne's helped. How do I leave?
Yes.
You know.
You didn't really have a formal interview then, did you? You went to Howard Brodsky and Howard checked with Guy?
Well, he knew me over the years.
So, like many other people who came to the district, the interview was not a formal interview as it would be today. It was very different.
Is the word perfunctory? Is that what they say?
Sure.
He knew me. He knew how I worked. Yes. I got letters from everybody that I worked for. And I was fortunate. Yeah, I was fortunate.
Well, I've heard it said many, many times, just as you've just expressed it in your own words, that you don't do things alone. You always accomplish your own tasks as the same time you're working on the mission of the larger community, and everybody is helping one another. But I've often heard it said that Brentwood in that sense, is like a microcosm of this whole country.
Absolutely.
Would you agree with that?
Oh, 1,000%.
Yeah.
This is there's heart here. I think I said it before. There's heart here. There's heart in the community. There's heart in the school district. Yeah. Look at the children we service. Look at the children we service.
Look at the
numbers.
And
we service them as best we can.
Yes, yes.
You know, and we have dedicated people.
Yes.
We have people. Maybe they won't live in Brentwood. That's their prerogative. Yes. We can't all live in this good community. But they choose to stay here because it's a fine, fine school district, you know. Administration and teachers, well, they'll always have their days and nights.
Sure.
But in the end, they work for the children.
In the end,
that's all you have to think about.
In the end, it's a team. And
do you know what we have to do? I taught, and then I went on the other side. I got my administrative degree from C.W. Post. I did go and get that. In 1 year, I did it all. In fact, they told me I'd have to take a national test. So I said, no way, I'll graduate before you have to do that. So I did it all in a year. And although I did not get, per se, an administrative position, they did need, my friend Janet was the committee chairperson for preschool. She retired, went to Florida. I got a phone call after I set my room up to go back in September. I got a phone call, could you please come? I'd like to talk to you about committee chairperson. Mm-hmm. Well, then I worked in special services and I saw administration. Excuse me. You know what? Great. You get a sense of what they go through. You know, you're in the classroom, you complain, they don't give me this and they don't do that. Go over there and see why they don't do this or why they don't do that, you know. And so you don't judge as quickly.
Right, right.
But Brentwood is wonderful.
You also taught in a number of programs or had different hats that you've worn.
That's
Why
correct.
don't you walk us through when you first started?
As a resource room teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And in a building that was then closed, the village, original village school. And then I went to Northeast Elementary and I was a resource room teacher there. And then they needed to have only 2 instead of 3 resource teachers. So I was low man on the totem pole, but Mr. Brodsky said, how about early intervention? I said, you've got to be kidding. What am I going to do with 3 and 4 and 5-year-olds? But you know what? I was good for that. I was a good early intervention teacher, and because I didn't have to deal with history and math and science in that way. I could teach children how to love themselves. You know, I could teach children how to be proud of themselves, and I could mend broken children. And I had a gift for that. And I did it for like 14, 15 years before I became the preschool committee chairperson. But I took little broken bodies and I made them whole. And I had an opportunity to work with parents. And I used to say to them, you know, I have your child 2.5 hours. I can't do it all. Please help me. I need you. And you'd be surprised when people are needed, how they come forward.
True.
And
you also mentioned the South Elementary at one point.
Oh, South was where I volunteered.
Okay.
South was where I volunteered.
That's where it all started.
That's where it all started. That's where it all started. Yeah.
And eventually that building was closed.
And that's where Janet said to me, what's a nice girl like you doing in a place like this? Go to college. Okay. So that building closed and I'm still here.
Some of the people that you've worked with that you know, if we were to give honorable mention, I mean, there are so many people. I know that's a tough question to ask, but maybe there are certain names that jump out at you that you can think of at just this moment as we speak of it. People who's touched your life.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I can tell you people whom I thought were tremendous teachers, people who I thought were not tremendous teachers, but they affected children's lives and they helped some children. So no teacher is not a good teacher, okay? I like to clarify that. Maybe this child isn't helped by me, but another teacher is helping that child. So
I
Janet Carroll.
have to interrupt for
Go
a
ahead.
moment, only to underscore the importance of what you're saying, and in the hopes that people will hear that every teacher is some student's favorite teacher.
You got it. You got it. And I may not agree, and so what?
Yes.
It doesn't matter. You know, some teacher touches some child, and that's important, you know. Janet Carroll, great. Anita LaPiccolo, different style. Her style and my style, night and day. Is she good? She's great. Going back to Lynn Evans, who I watched in the beginning, terrific. Cara Falk, current teachers.
Yes.
Teachers I still keep in contact with.
Yes.
I'd like to mention a psychologist, Drew Robinson, the best. They don't make them much better, with heart and knowledge, and just a great guy.
Administrators sometimes get a bad rap. You must have worked with all kinds.
Sure. I mean, Mr. Brodsky always took a bad rap, let's be honest. You know, half the world hated him and the other half loved him. I considered him my mentor. He never liked me to say thank you, but I always said thank you. He didn't want to hear that he helped my family, but he helped my family. Very much so. Who else? My husband. Without him, I couldn't have been anything.
How did you guys meet?
Oh, I didn't like him. He was horrible. My sister knew him when he worked in a supermarket in Brooklyn. And he said to her, there's a girl named Grace. I'd like to go out with her. And he didn't know we were sisters. And she came home one day and she said, Grace, he is so nice. Why don't you go out with him? I said, please. I don't like him at all. But he left the supermarket and he went to work at Borough Offset Printing in Brooklyn, downtown Brooklyn. And they had a Christmas party. And he saw my sister and he asked my sister he didn't know we were sisters, but if she saw me, could I go to this Christmas party with him? And I agreed. And we had a lovely evening, but it was 12 o'clock and it was held in a hotel in New York. And it was 12 o'clock and I said, Al, I have to go home. He said, home? He said, how old are you? I said, I'm 16. 16? He said, I thought you were 20. He was 20. He was 21. So, but he did take me home indeed. And when I told my mom he had 9 sisters, her friend said, drop them. They're wonderful girls. I had my mother-in-law. I never met my father-in-law. I'm not meant to meet fathers, I guess. He passed away before we were married. Mm-hmm. And we were married.
And you were married for
40 years.
For 40 years?
Yes. May I tell you about that?
Please.
The marriage itself was super because he was super. You know, he was the glue, even though he'd deny that and say I was, you know. A very hardworking man, a very good man, you know. Spoiled me. There was nothing. No one in this world will ever love me or like me the way he did. He was a great friend. And where was I? I wanted to tell you.
You wanted to tell me about that marriage.
Oh, yes. So we had a very fine marriage, but I did lose something.
Okay.
Without him, I would never have made my schooling and everything else. You know?
And in a very real sense, he's with you even now.
Always.
Yeah.
Always.
He hasn't, in one sense, been with you for 3 years.
That's correct.
And we're still very close to that event. It has to still be proudly.
The celebration of our 40th anniversary. Okay. The children took us out to a restaurant and we had dinner together and it was fine. And that was December. We were married December 28th. So in the month of December, they took us out. I had always said for my 40th anniversary how I would love to have the whole bridal party together and how good that would be. But I said that over the years, you know, and never gave it much thought. In February, James was going out with Joanne and he said to me, Mom, how would you like to come out to dinner with the Harveys? That's Joanne's mom and dad. And you and Daddy come and we'll have dinner and you'll meet them. So I said, well, that sounds very nice. And we went over to the Bonwit And we went upstairs. When we went upstairs, the whole bridal party was there.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was wonderful.
Oh.
Yeah. And he died that May. So.
And in that same year,
Yes.
a lot of other decisions were made.
Oh,
Profound
absolutely.
events. Tell me about that now.
We spoke of a trip in the summer for 6 weeks to the Grand Canyon. And he had started to send away for books and brochures from every state. And we spoke of retirement, you know. I was with the district 27 odd years, but technically it was 23 as far as a professional. So we were preparing everything and we thought about it, and financially we would have been able to do it, and we wanted to spend time together. So we did. We made the decision to retire. However, he decided to pull out in May. And came June, I did still put my papers in. And the reason being is that I loved my job.
Yes.
I loved it. I was good at it. I had made great friends in it. The parents were very happy with me. And I was at the top of what you would call your game. But you know what? It's good to go out on top.
Yes, it is.
Before they say, you know, she's slipping.
Yes.
Or, you know, she doesn't remember the laws anymore. Or, you know. So I went out at the top of my game.
Okay.
And I haven't looked back.
Right.
You know, I visit. You know, I live in Brentwood. I go to the schools. I visit. And they had a wonderful party for me. They put it off because of Al's demise. But they had a party for me in October of that year, of 3 years ago. So that's 98. Right. He died in 98. And it was great. Put closure.
A lot of closure, a lot of major changes, chapters of your life ending and others beginning, all at the same, sequentially, almost one on top of the other. Good point to ask you, good time to ask you this question. You've had job descriptions for every position that you've held, but throughout that whole career, following along right to the summit of it, so to speak, you also had your own purpose or mission that drove you to do what you did. Can you put that into words, what it was that gave you the sense of purpose?
May I quote a poem?
Please.
I wrote it.
Please.
Life is something we should live with open eyes each day. For each of us is special in his or her own way. So go and find that something and thank God for it, and never let a day go by with which you would ignore it. I wanted people to find out how special they are. That was my goal. That's it.
You have certainly touched a lot of lives then, and many of them reach back to touch yours, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's always a give and take. It's
I've
always
been blessed,
exchange.
you know, with being poor, being rich.
Yes. Did you ever have any awareness when you were a kid that you were, quote, poor? You didn't mention
monetarily, I knew it.
You knew it.
When I went to school and I didn't have clothes like
because
other
there were
children
comparisons
did.
with other kids so that you could see.
Those were the sadder times. But you know what? They're not much. Today I can afford to buy more clothes and I don't.
Yes.
You know, it's not...
Grace, were you ever active in any of the organizational part of your... the
community.
I'm thinking more of like with BTA or with your professional organization. Were you ever active?
In the union, I would go to the union meetings.
Okay, so in that sense you were...
In that I went to, I was part of that.
Because you certainly were a member of the union.
Yes. Oh, yes. And I would attend the monthly meetings. But basically, you know, I had who had his heart condition. I had the 3 boys to raise.
You had a very full plate.
I had a full plate. And I also I was the first lector at St. Anne's.
Oh,
I was
the,
what would you call, charter member for the Ladies Auxiliary in the Knights of Columbus. So that there were many things that I gave to. And I didn't want to cheat any of them. Okay?
Yeah.
So you can't be too thin.
Right.
Then you cheat. You cheat yourself, you cheat them. So I did what I could do and I gave where I could give. You know, and that's it.
And from what you've described, you were very involved, even beyond the school district, then, particularly
No
at
question. In St.
St.
Anne's, absolutely.
That was a large part of your
With
life.
Pronto, with Al and I, with both Pronto and St. Anne's as the lector, and oh yeah, prayer group, which is still in existence for 30 years.
And you're
we've
still
been together.
participating?
This prayer group still meets. We go away together. We have a wonderful time together.
Let me ask you a question that bears upon your professional involvement. We are living through a time when there is great debate over not just prayer in school, but the separation of church and state and, constitutional issues. Do you have any feelings about that? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm sure that when you deal on a spiritual dimension with your students, as we all did and do, we work with kids. It's body, mind, and spirit.
That's right. The whole approach.
There are positions that we take and things that we believe. I wondered if you could, if you care to comment on any of your particular feelings about that subject, about the separation and the necessity of keeping these worlds separate.
Well, I think right now, just yesterday or the day before, a ruling came down that the Catholic schools could use the public schools as meeting rooms for, and I think that's good. I think that's good. The other part of it is that we don't, maybe this isn't exactly what you're asking, but as models, we can mix church and state, okay? By who we are and what we do. I see nothing wrong with mixing to some degree. They criticize President Bush because he always says God and God and God. But he finds him very important in his life.
Yes, yes.
And therefore it comes out of him.
Yes, yes. I want to get back now to talking about when you retired. That was, the year was?
1988.
98.
98. 98.
Okay, 1998.
1998.
Was there anything throughout your professional experience, Grace, that you were most proud of having a hand in accomplishing? Was there one thing that you could point, or at least one thing that you could say, I really, I'm proud about or liked that?
I think a little child told me what was the best thing.
What's that?
I had the class of 10 little children, 3-year-olds, and the little child was going to go to Puerto Rico. And she said to me, Mrs. Ausili, please come with me to Puerto Rico.
Oh.
And I said, oh, I'd love to. I said, but I have to go to work. And she said to me, you work? Where do you work? And I think that was the greatest accomplishment of my working career. I never went to work. I never went to work.
That's that from the mouths of babes. Yes.
Yeah.
Profound. What was the last assignment that you had?
As the preschool committee chairperson for the Brentwood School District.
All right. And the number of years then that you totaled?
27, including clerical, volunteer, assistant, teacher.
Do you remember what your salary was the first year?
$11,900.
Okay.
Yeah.
You've already told us in some detail what the reason was, what your game plan was for leaving at that time. What have you been doing since? I recognize there have been many adjustments that have been made. There were many changes that took place.
Yeah.
Your involvement with St. Anne's and the prayer group is still a paramount part of your life?
The prayer group, what happened is I had mom who had Alzheimer's, and I took care of her for 7 years. I had my husband with his heart condition. I had an uncle who was ill, and I have an aunt currently with cancer, so I take care of her. And then I have my own family, and then, but I've traveled. I have traveled a good deal.
You have found time
I went
to
to Europe. I went to Assisi. I went to Switzerland, Germany, France. I take 4 days here in Washington and Virginia and 4 days there, you know.
Good, good.
And there to just put myself together so I can then go back and do what I have to do.
To re-energize and recharge, and you
That's
have to
correct.
do that.
That's
Yeah.
correct, you know. I've been fortunate in as much as I can stay by myself. I love people.
Yes, I understand.
But I can be alone, very alone with myself and be
Yes.
very comfortable.
Yes, and I'm
And
sure
that
you
is a refresher.
and I'm sure you enjoy the conversation.
Oh, absolutely. As long as I don't answer.
We spoke earlier about the number of unsung heroes
Yes.
in our lives that
Yes.
are involved and participating in ways that we have no idea, such as you just described, taking care of loved ones, of family
Right.
members, of friends.
I babysat so my daughter-in-law could get through the court stenography school, you know, because here she was with the baby, you know, surprise. And things like that. But
Is
they're
there-
wonderful. The baby kept me going when Al passed away. She gave me new life.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
she put meaning in my life, you
Yes.
know. So it was good.
Is there anything that you still have on the drawing board? There's something that you would like to do, or presently
That
you have a
Reader's Theater.
project? That's
I'm
it.
going to find it and I'm
Okay.
going to try to pursue it.
Great.
And
I don't know if this is a fair question. Some people take offense at the question because they are so opposed to even the thought of it, but I will ask it and risk your being honest with me either way. If you had your life to live over again, is there anything that you would like a chance to do differently?
it's probably very easy to say, I would have gone into theater or I would have done this. But you know what? I've had a wonderful life. I've been blessed. I've been lucky. I've been unlucky. And that doesn't make for a bad life. You
Does
know?
not.
Because people get sick around you or because you can't do something you wish you could do does not make a bad life. I've had a very fine, full life.
Which
And
means
teaching was a great part of it.
Yeah,
And I never regret a day in the classroom.
that's a powerful thing to be able to
So,
say.
It's
You've been a reader, I know, and if you
Yes.
like poetry,
Yes.
you're also a profound thinker and a deep thinker. But can you mention a book that may be one of your favorites, or of the many books that you've read, one that was a powerful book that you can think of at this moment?
I am currently reading a book. I am currently reading a book called, oh my goodness, The Holy Longing by R.O.B.S. It is magnificent for everyone to read. It's a book that is just, I believe he was inspired to write this book, and it is a very fantastic book. We do it as a monthly chapter for the prayer group, but
I
we
see.
hardly can get through the chapter. But then on the light side, I loved Auntie Maine. On the
Yes.
dark side, I loved Angela's Ashes. So I love all guys.
Different
I
kinds
read
of-
about Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn, and I was sorry because I don't like them as much after I read about them. I had such respect for Katharine Hepburn until I read how she allowed herself to be used by Spencer Tracy. So but I do read.
Yes,
And
yes.
I'll pick up, it doesn't have to be a mystery, or I do love biographies.
Really?
Who is my model to want to be like Eleanor Roosevelt?
You anticipated my next question.
Oh, I
Yes.
love Eleanor Roosevelt. She was, God put her here to serve, and she served. And what a wonderful gal. Yeah.
Is there anything in particular that, of all of the positive things that you could say about your experience working in the field of special education, is there something about it that you miss the most?
The little child asking me, you work?
Yes.
The fun stories with the children. Do you know, in early intervention, it's a very special place to be. And you must love 3, 4, and 5-year-olds, or please don't go there. Please don't go there. Because It's a change every day. You watch them grow, you watch them develop. I told you I like to be called Grace. And I think that's a very heavy name. That name carries a great burden. And I think that serving those children allowed me to witness that, you know. That's what I miss, the interactions with the little 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. They were so good. And as far as the committee chairperson...
Excuse me, I want to say that what I hear you saying when you express it in those terms is that you are referring to Amazing Grace.
Oh, gosh, no.
You are referring to the power, the weight of your name and the role that you've been given, the responsibility.
That's correct. That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything that you would like to have accomplished that you were not able to have either sufficient time to accomplish or that you couldn't?
Oh, I guess I could list a dozen things.
Okay.
Okay. Why not?
Sure.
Let's be honest.
Sure.
When I'm doing one thing, I could wish I was doing something else.
Sure.
Offhand, I'm content. I'm content.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is there something that gives you concern as you look ahead to the future of this community and its children?
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that gives you pause that you could express concern about, either to the people who are in your place now or the younger teachers who hopefully someday will see pieces of this interview to listen to the benefit of their, quote, elders, unquote?
Well, I think that we have to look into families more. You know, I worry about my own family, and they're fairly good. They're not dysfunctional to my way of thinking. Sure, we all have some dysfunctional moments in all our lives, but so hard they work, you know. You work to put food on the table, make ends meet, and they're all, thank God, very blessed. But the mothers run around. They never stop running. They're taking this one here, this one there. I'm concerned about that. I think we have to slow down a little bit.
But what about the awesome burden of responsibility that is being given to teachers now to pick up for what you're referring to?
I absolutely feel that a teacher is not a mother, a father, a church, a family. You know, a teacher has a job to do. You want to bring intellect to the children. Yes, you want to be there for them emotionally and spiritually, but you need their parents. You need their families. They need their families. A teacher can become your best friend, and she can help you so many ways, but she is not your family.
Yes.
You know, and it's family. It's all the family. And that's what concerns me and the whole community. You know, it's all a family. The United States is the biggest family. Then you have the states and the countries. Then you have the real schools and communities, their families. I look at all organizations as families.
Grace, the illusion, though, that has been created is that we can substitute for families by creating institutions, creating networks, creating other support systems. But what you're saying is nothing replaces the function and the importance of the family, of the basic unit of social organization.
That's right. Then you send your children to school. Yes. And then the school takes over as the family, okay?
No one can ever care for you or love you
as your family does.
As your family does.
That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah. I guess you've answered almost every question that I had for you, because in and under your words, you've given a good deal of valuable advice to those people who are doing what we used to do ourselves. Mm-hmm. I don't know if there's anything that we haven't talked about that perhaps you can suggest. You know, one thing before we're finished, I'd like to comment on, or I'd like to say. Mm-hmm. The floor is yours if there is anything that you can think of.
Well, I think to all the teachers today, I'd like to say, try to go in there and love it. Sometimes it's not easy. And you know, when you look at a child, always try to look at one thing that's beautiful about that child. You know, because I did not like every child that came to me. I mean, we're human beings. Some clash, some don't. But look for something in that one child, especially the child you think you don't care for.
Yes.
And then teach that child. And teach it with all your heart. Give it all you've got.
You've mentioned several things which I think provide us with an opportunity here to round this whole interview out and to finish. I think sometimes, you've said this yourself, things happen, fall into place in your life at just a particular moment that draw you toward a direction or along a path.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just that we're pushed. It's we are sometimes pulled. It's sometimes we're pulled ahead. And we hadn't planned to be pulled in the directions that we were pulled.
Right.
When you mention finding that one quality in one of your students that you can see as a positive, that's a way of pulling them also into a future that they might not even recognize is available for them.
This is true.
It's been an honor. It's been a delight. I thank you for the time that you've given us, and I hope those folks who are both in the family and friends who are going to watch this will enjoy it as much as I've enjoyed being with you to do it. Thanks,
I hope
Grace.
so. And thank you for taking me through memory lane.